Okay, this is a combined meeting of the Community Engagement Committee and the Finance Committee. It's budget season. It's now March 19th and the time is 7:06 p.m. and we'll get started by making introduction. Lisa?
Lisa Raymond, Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Chris?
Chris Fallon, trustee, parent.
Luke?
Luke Johnson, Network Administrator.
Trustee Ananya Mans.
Samantha Ives, parent and PTA council. Gabriella Carmona, parent, also on PTA council.
Moving target?
Sven Höger, I'm a resident.
Rebecca Zampalayo, trustee and parent.
And let's see who's online.
Amy Ashley Moore, District Treasurer.
And Kelly?
Yes, Kelly Johnson, parent.
Okay, anybody I missed? Yes. And Ross? Introduce yourself, Tracy.
Tracy Ayers, school board president for this year, and parent of 3.
Good.
1 graduate, 2 kids.
So-
We're eating dinner.
Yeah, we're eating. All right, so we're going to start with the budget. And Chris Valen is the head of the Finance Committee. Take it away, Chris.
Hello. In the finance committee and the board meetings, sometime in January, I believe, Ms. Raymond has been presenting what the administration has come up with for budgets. There has been some discussions. We have discussed possible impacts due to changes in the federal government. We have been looking at what title monies we receive that could be impacted. We've been looking at the Rockefeller Foundation report to see changes that have been suggested that may or may not be put into law this year. So we've been doing a lot of the background work. This is the first meeting we're going to look at the detailed appropriations report that compares the previous budget to the current year budget. I can say, well, I actually did that on the state congressional level, there have been some discussions and proposals from the governor, from the House, and from the Assembly. From the State Senate. Of course, those discussions are ongoing, so nothing has been completely decided. I can state, generally speaking, that there seems to be congressional support for some changes in the formula for the regional cost index. The Assembly's version is slightly more favorable to us because that would combine, that would create 4 different regions, changes in 4 different regions, and the Senate's version would only impact the city and Long Island, so that may not help us in the formula calculations. If we're choosing one to support the version. Both houses are looking to increase the minimum universal pre-K funding amount per pupil and to provide funding. So that's an issue that they've been going to get behind this year. They're also looking to support some career and technical education funding, which helps us indirectly through our partnership with BOCES. Both houses are also looking at providing increase in the per pupil ceiling for library materials aid. We don't get billions and billions, but we do get some aid from that. And a few other things. I think they're supporting the funding of universal student meals with different proposals from both houses. So there's movement in some areas, some not great movement in others. One negative area is the governor, I believe, has proposed to put 100% of the cost for certain fees for students with disabilities and other district placements onto the school district instead of cost sharing. That ratio is currently cost shared. The percentage paid by school districts has increased over the last 3 to 4 years. And now they're looking to make it 100% burden onto the school district instead of a split share. That's the most negative thing I can find in my reading of the materials that have come so far. Like I said, everything's still to be decided, but that's where we are right now on the state level.
And this budget is based upon the governor's aid run?
That's correct. Okay. So at this time, I think I will turn it over to, if John could pull up the budget appropriations report. I believe we have various drives and you should be able to find it. It's
Yes.
called 25-26 budgeting appropriation status report. And I guess Ms. Raymond will just scroll down. And as people have questions, we could raise hands. If I don't see you.
Is this something that I can click through or no?
Oh, I believe so, actually, yeah.
And for those in the room, there is a printout at that table if you did not pick one up.
That won't do.
Got you to the other table, okay? While we're getting set up, I could probably just read ahead a little bit and let everyone know that the next finance committee meeting will be April 1st at 7 p.m. The location is to be determined. It may be Bailey or we may try to go to the center. So we will update that on the school district website calendar once that's been finalized. The budget needs to be adopted by the board by April 22nd. At our 7 p.m. meeting. The budget hearing will be May 6th at the 6:30 p.m. work session. And the budget vote will be May 20th from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. at Woodlands Middle High School Gymnasium. I don't have the deadlines for registering to vote. I'll look that up well. Let me think.
Did we want to mention that anybody that would like to look at the last budget presentation that was done? Can see it's a multi-page document where Dr. Iverson started with a overview of what has happened and where her budget is what she was proposing in her budget. Dr. Njoku then did enrollment analysis, and then we led into the proposed budgets to date, which is what this budget here tonight is.
That what
And
Ms.
that is on
Raymond-
the website.
Right, you can look under the About tab, school district budget.
I have a question. The next finance committee, could we maybe call that a budget workshop so people know that we're specifically gonna look at the budget?
Finance committee colon
Slash,
budget workshop.
yeah.
Sure. Is pointing out, because I don't have my minutes with me, David's pointing out that we may have discussed doing it at Highview, so I'll, like I said, the location will be confirmed and put onto the website.
Okay, so if you look at page 1, the budget starts with the 1,000 codes. The 1,000 codes for Board of Education, District Clerk, and District Meeting are all what are included in the 1,000 codes, and these are for the expenses for each one of these groups. It includes salaries, supplies, any contractual services and BOCES services. And you'll see that throughout. That is a theme throughout all school budgets under each category. You'll see salaries if they apply, equipment, supplies and materials, contractual items, textbooks, tuition, and OC services. So you'll see here on page 1, if you look down more towards the bottom of the page, you'll see something that says 10. So the total for the Board of Education district clerk and the district meeting is the budget vote or any vote that we do have. I've only budgeted for 1 vote for next year, which is the budget vote. We have decreased from the 24-25 year to the 25-26 year by a little more than $20,000, and that is due to salaries of new employees. Then the 1200 codes are the superintendent's office, and you'll see that on the bottom of page 1, the top of page 2.
Before you go on to the next code, I'm sorry, Ms. Raymond. Can you just clarify, the Board of Education is not getting a salary? It's not board salaries, we have a district clerk.
If you look at the 1010
Yes.
codes, there is no salary code under the Board of Education,
Right.
it's the district clerk.
Thank you.
1240 codes again are the superintendent's office and all the expenditures that pertain to there, which is superintendent's salary, or secretary's salary, and any of the expenditures that they would incur in that office. Under the 1300 codes, that includes the business operations of the district, my office, auditing services, both internal, external, and the claims auditors that we need to have done, the treasurer and our fiscal agent fees. Again, you will see here that ends on page 3 at the top, maybe in the middle of page 3, and there is an increase there. And basically what has increased are salaries in this code. The 1400 code,
Sorry, the salary increases are contractual, correct?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
The 1400 codes in schooling business are called the personnel section. And this is the section where you budget for all of your legal expenses for your counsel, bond counsel, and the Board of Education's legal counsel. Any personnel expenditures are budgeted here, which pertain basically to some staff development. And then the records management, we have a part-time employee that we employ for our records management, which involves coordinating boxing, having it filmed and stored, because there are certain documents that school districts have to keep for life, and then there are certain ones that have to stay for 6 years or more. You look on page 4, then we have also under the 1400 codes is public information, which is our PR person and 2 of our PR people.
And it's gone from 122,000 to 147,000.
Yes, and that is according to the contract and the increase that they can have, that is proposed in the article.
You know how long that contract is in effect?
I believe from board policy, our RFPs and our contracts are 5, it depends what it is, 3 to 5 years.
Hold on, Mr. Member. The district clerk, I thought one of the roles was record management. That's how it is?
No.
No? Okay. All right.
The record management is coordinated. It was coordinated by the district clerk when she moved to be the superintendent secretary. She coordinates it, but we've always had a part-time person.
Okay. All right.
You're welcome. The 1620 and the 1621 codes are for buildings and grounds. 1620 are for the operations of the budget. These include all of the expenditures for Mr. Police and his cleaners and custodians. So you'll find under here utilities, fuel, security costs. And you'll notice if you look at the end of this 1620 codes on page 7 that there is a substantial decrease there, and that is because we will be recognizing some savings for the energy performance contract. Even though the energy performance contract hasn't been completed, I consulted with our provider who is doing the EPC project and asked them to give us an estimate of what our savings would be that I could reflect in this budget.
1620-160-08-000 plant operations.
I'm talking about the 1620 codes right now, not the
Right.
1621 codes.
Yeah,
No, he's saying 1620.
1620.160.08.000. Plant operations, WHS, non-instructional salary went down.
Correct, and that's because you'll see throughout this, budget, where salaries have either increased or have gone down, and that's because we've had a turnover of staff, and when we hired new staff, we've, hired them.
Yeah,
So if there's staff that has
Got
not
it.
been replaced, is that,
That's budgeted for in here at an estimate.
You know, let's ask the question, but the energy, fuel oil again, and also later on the next page, there's gas and electric.
Yes,
All of them went down drastically.
that's because of the energy performance contract. These are the savings that the energy performance provider, RWE, has given us that we will have in the savings.
So we're not paying for medicine or so.
And we shouldn't be, no,
So we have.
or it'll be very minimal. And even though the project hasn't been completed yet, I didn't budget I budgeted something just in case we needed it.
But it's just, I mean, tremendous savings there. I'm just surprised.
Yes, and that all came from their analysis of what we would save.
they've
from
done the
EPC.
light, which is a big deal. They
Run the gas
everything, they installed gas lines and go from fuel
Those
oil
were
to gas.
expenses in the past.
Correct,
This year.
Yeah.
correct,
Okay, forward going, those expenses will not be reoccurring.
correct.
It's not the operation, it's the use of gasoline, the use of gas and use of
Yeah.
electricity. It's not,
Yeah.
that's not that. Or is it included? You mean
We will use less electricity.
we will
The
use
lights are-
that much less?
All the lights have been changed to LED.
Oh,
And we now will have the solar carport where we will store our energy for ourselves and or sell it back to the grid.
okay, great.
Energy is one price
And
at
the
night.
estimated
Price
cost
of the
of
day.
what we would sell back to the grid is already built into this budget on the expenditure side, not the revenue side, because we will not see it as a revenue, we will see it as a credit against our bills.
Right. It's just tremendous savings, that's what I'm.
But if you remember, the energy performance contract savings should be able to offset the debt service payment. Which will be at more towards the end. So in the 1621 codes are the maintenance codes, and that again falls under Mr. Pugliese, his department also. And this is basically salaries and any upkeeps that we need for our facilities. That continues on for
1621-422, maintenance, district building maintenance improvement. Went from 70,600 to 170,600. Is that,
that is because I built into, if you remember from the budget presentation, I built into Mr. Pugliese's budget money so that small projects could be done.
got it?
Instead of it being in the capital fund.
Right.
And then in the 1680 codes, that is our central data processing, which is technically, it really is a technology code. And this is where our database manager and our data analyst that was hired this year are budgeted for, along with various other expenses and a lot of our services that we get through BOCES and the Lower Hudson Regional Information Center flow through this code.
So the first item, 160-01, went from 92,067 to 170,305.
That's because we hired a data analyst this school year, which was budgeted in the 24-25. Okay, And the 1900 codes, those we label as administrative miscellaneous items, and that is for our insurances, general liability, cybersecurity, all of those kind of student accident insurance, any school association dues, any judgments and claims, if we should have any that year, tax certiorari assessments that are on homeowners, not on businesses, and refund, I'm sorry, that's what the refund for real property taxes is, but any assessments, those would be for scars that may come back from the county after somebody's assessment has been adjusted. And then the BOCES administrative and capital expenditures, every school district has that belongs to a BOCES has to assume a portion of their administration and capital expenditures, and this is what Greenburgh's portion is for the school year. That number is provided to me by the business official of Southern Westchester BOCES, so that is a set amount, and I do know that right away. Okay. So then if you look on page 11 at the top, the number 1 that has $8,695,564. The administration portion of this budget has decreased, and that is substantially because of the savings for the energy performance contract. Right. The 2010 expenditures, that is for the Office of the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction Programs and Instruction. This is for her office. You will see here that under the 2010 16101 codes, that salary has increased. And that is just, there is a staff member who was reassigned back to the Office of the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, so I just moved her salary, part of her salary, because it's being shared with federal money. I just moved her salary back to these codes, so that it's reflected in the proper category.
Ms. Raymond, that's is it secretarial staff?
Yes.
Okay.
The 2020 codes on page 12, that is for all of the administrators. And here you will see, I have budgeted for an administrator, all administrators, even if they are retiring, are budgeted here. You will see that there is a 2020 15105 code that went to 0. And that is because that money we hired that restorative practices school culture coordinator. So I moved that to the correct code. And I made this 0 because that money is no longer available. That was
That's right.
2020 15105.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Okay.
Okay, Sam and Gabby have.
It's the same question. I'm looking at that budget line that went to 0, but it's marked as ACP.
Yes, because staff member that was in that code was transferred from Bailey to ECP. That salary then was assumed by federal money, so that money then went to the restorative practices board.
Okay, but it's okay.
But what?
I'm trying to visualize the movement of the pieces in my head. So that we don't have an administrative salary for ECP?
It is in the federal funds now.
Correct, because it's Head Start.
It's all budgeted under those codes.
Yes, thank you.
So then that monies that were budgeted for that went to this position.
Right.
This
Gotcha.
new position of Bailey. Okay. You will also see the 2020 16105 code. That is, it is a new position, per the GTF contract, every school has a teacher secretary. So that was a teacher secretary that needed to be hired for
The bottom of the page.
ECP.
Yeah, what
Page
number is that?
14, bottom of page 12.
Wow.
One six-
2020.161 for -05.
Oh,
Right. It's
I'm
in
sorry.
it's in the crease.
no, I thought it was 2021.
So did I.
And then you'll also see there's a decrease in the 2020 161 code. And that is because that secretary for that administrator is now shared between 2 administrators. So their salary is budgeted in 2 different codes.
about the 161-07?
2020-16100.
Oh, 07?
No,
Oh.
page 12, a little further up.
Sorry.
Shared stick.
We're still on page 12.
Right.
Yeah.
Has everyone found where we are?
It's a lot of
We're
numbers.
working on it.
So the last one we referenced was page 12,
No,
2020.151-08.
Sorry, 000. You were reading the line above too. It went from 93 to 38,000.
Yes.
The salary is split, so, yeah.
Okay. And then where we are on page 12, Ms. Raymond? Any questions right now? Okay.
Okay.
So if we just continue and go, to the main portion of any budget, which is the 2110 codes, which start a little bit on the bottom of page 14, but then continue to several pages. This shows you all of the salaries by school districts for, teachers, one-on-one teacher aides and teacher assistants, as well as any supplies, materials, equipment, contractual items.
Ms. Raymond, before we go there, can we go back to 13 on 20, the second number, 2020.161-07?
That is all budgeted under 08.
08, got it. You moved it.
Yeah, well, see, when you do this budget, it pulls it in from where people have put salaries, and all those salaries were put in 08
Okay,
for this year, so.
thank you.
So in the 2110 codes includes everybody's salary. You know, we settled with the GTF, we're in negotiations with the GAO, and we are, next year, we will be in the last year of the GCSO, our support staff. So budgeted here are all of the salaries. You may see a decrease in a salary line, indicating that somebody left, we hired at a lesser step. If you see an increase, there were often times where we had to increase one-on-one aides or some teacher assistants. So you can see that there are increases in some of the schools. I had been asked our equipment number, we kept the same as last year. If you remember, we had decreased our equipment. I kept it the same as what was budgeted this year, so that we had something for equipment in case something needed to be replaced. I was asked to budget for field trip expenses. I have done that under every principal's code. Under the 450 codes, I have given by on a per student basis an increase for them to use for field trip expenses.
So where is that? What
Give us
page
an
is that
example.
on?
So you would see, for example, on page 21, if you looked at 2110, 450, 03, 0000, you'll see that I increased that by $2,500 for LF Jackson. 2110, 450, 04, 0000, that was increased by $2,600. They did it for all of the elementary schools.
Is it good to say that if a position is vacant,
It has been budgeted.
it's been budgeted for through you said you give an average of a middle step?
Correct.
So we could hire lower, but sometimes we have to hire higher depending on the experience.
Correct, yep. So you're gonna see a common theme if it's outside of salaries, that nothing really increased significantly in the budget. We're holding the line so that we could balance this budget. Look on page 23, the 2250 codes are for special education. If you notice the 2250, 150, 03, 0000 code, special ed, LF Jackson instructional salaries. We had to create 2 special education classes at LF Jackson, and that is what this significant increase here is for. And you'll see additionally on the next page, under the teacher assistants, those classes needed teacher assistants, if it was an 812 or 1212, so the teacher assistants also had to be hired to comply with special ed mandates for those classes. The 2250, 16406, you'll see that that has decreased by approximately half. And that is because we had, last school year, we had 3 LPNs. 1 retired this year, and Mr. Giarusso did not need to replace that person, so that code decreased.
Also, so that's a quick question. I'm looking back at pages 22 and before, I'm looking in the supplies is the wrong word. I'm looking at the budget lines for art, music, and ALP. Each school has arts, music, and ALP. At Jackson, it's 500. At Highview, it's still 500, even though Jackson.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the page numbers?
What
Like,
is
what
it?
page number she's referencing?
Page number is it?
Page 21.
21.
I might have said 12, my brain is, we're dialing. Okay, so page 21, I'm looking at the budget line for art, music, and ALP supplies.
That's 2110, right? 2110.
2110.450-03.
Okay.
What I'm curious about is that art, music, and ALP supplies is only $500 for both art and music for Jackson. And then for Highview, it's the same, although Highview has 2 ALP classes and Jackson does not. So I'm curious about combining art and music. I'm curious about that number that seems a little bit low for those 2 very project-heavy classrooms. And then I'm curious about the budget not increasing school to school, even though the program does increase school to school.
And Bailey has 1,000.
Yes, it does, but they also have 3 grades and a more productive is the wrong word. They do productions with their arts and music. They do concerts. They have band class. They have a theater production. They have hands-on art supplies, as I know the lower schools do. But even those 3 classes, the budget may be doubled. There's still out classes in each grade from 2 through 6 that don't look to me like they're actually budgeted in there.
And then New Lansing High School has 3,500. I'm assuming it's the same line, 450. 3,000.
Correct, there's the same line, but there is no ALP at Woodlands Middle High School that transitions to an honors program, so arts and music has a much more.
Is
increased
honors
budget.
paid out of this? I'm sorry to cut you off. Is
No,
honors
I think
paid?
we're asking the same questions.
Yeah, is honors. Oh,
I
no.
don't-
Oh,
These are the numbers that the principals have given us.
I'm
And
curious
have
to learn a
okayed
little
in their
more about
budget.
that.
I'd have to go back and ask.
What does ALP stand for?
The advanced learning program or even?
so is it possible to just get that question answered?
I'll ask.
I would also question why, I'm not clear on why that's even labeled ALP supplies, to my knowledge. Classrooms are classrooms are classrooms. So I would even wonder, do we actually buy the different supplies for
But
the
didn't-
classes?
Didn't the administrator for that used to be the same person? That was
Yeah.
arts, music, and out. Maybe they put it
It might
under
be.
the administrator.
That's a good, that might be. the word.
Person, not necessarily.
That's a good
It's
point.
the same person.
As far as equity in classrooms, I believe that's most likely the answer is we can find that out for the next meeting.
It is, but it's been a couple of years now. I'd be curious how that money plays out and how it gets spent and how that works.
We didn't maybe change the name of the bucket or whatever.
Well, I have to say, what I'm curious about primarily is whether the teachers know that they have supply budgets. And if the ALP teachers are supposed to be pulling their supplies from a different budget line than the other teachers, is that clear to them? Do the students have access to everything?
No,
they
they don't,
need?
yeah, they wouldn't be, let Ms. Raymond go
Yeah,
back with it,
that's-
because maybe it's the title of that.
It may just be, but I do want to.
That out might
ensure-
get funding from another, technically you get funding from another area, maybe in curriculum, I don't know. When she comes back with the answer, because I suspect that they made it that bucket to the person.
Probably, thank you.
Yeah, I just, the similar comment about RG Bailey about performances, IU also has.
That is true.
A winter performance, spring. And I think what else is there? There's talent shows that go on.
I do.
Well, he also, Mr. Master, each building also has a general line, and that's where they pull from.
Well,
I'm wondering if it wouldn't just be more clear for the programs if that were cleaned up a little bit.
I believe each principal, it's up to them how they dole out their money and how they handle it, so I
Right.
I don't know how each building.
Agreed,
Does-
but for the sake of committee discussion, I do think taking a look at the fact that IVU has a concert or two every year, and if that's having to come from the principal's line item, whereas at Bailey it comes from the arts line item, that's an inconsistency that seems like it should be able to be cleaned up. So we all do better with those.
We have a question from Mr. Simon.
Excuse me. Looking at the STEAM line, I see there have not been an increase in supply for the STEAM, especially with, especially as it relates to the fact that we are building new science labs and we require additional supplies to stock them properly. I think we should take another look at the budget for STEAM and for STEAM. I see it's the same as last year.
are you talking about specifically a particular building or in general, it's the same?
And I'm just looking, excuse me, if, I came in late and I just start looking at it and I saw in the line that ends in 030002, it's the same. Oh, I see. I see it right next to it says Lee F. Jackson. Okay, fine. But even at the elementary school level, I think if we are serious about STEAM, then we have to direct resources to it. And to maintain the same budget, even at the elementary school level, does not indicate a commitment to STEAM. So even though I was talking about Woodlands, I see it's now through Lee F. Jackson. I think it's equally applied to all levels of our schools.
Would it be helpful to have or invite the principals to one of the workshops? So maybe, because a lot of this, from what Mr. Simon is saying and what Ms. Ives is asking, the principals propose these things, they could answer what they do with that money and where it goes with their budget.
You can look at that. For now, if I could ask Ms. Raymond to repeat what she said earlier about what we're trying to do with the budget and holding the line.
Right,
And-
we're holding the line at all supplies and leaving it up to the principals to decide how they use the money that is budgeted in each line.
So we can follow up on that question. We can also request some examples for next time on how the monies have been spent in the current year. And Mr. Simon, to your other point, Ms. Raymond, correct me, the science lab project will take, let's say, 2 years roughly to complete. So we're not going to stock up on supplies now.
Okay, fine.
For them not to be destroyed. So as far as the outlook for that, that will probably come in a future budget year.
Okay, that answered that question. But going back to the practice that you leave it up to the principals to allocate that money. But if there is a philosophy at the board level that we want to place more emphasis on STEAM, then the principal will hear that when they are making up their budget to make sure it's consistent with the district's philosophy. So yes, you don't have to get into the numbers, but to make it clear that that is a district goal, and any principal that's attuned to the district goals, he or she will make sure that budget reflects district goals.
Thank you. Gabby, you had a question?
Related to the C, it's 50 lines down.
What number?
Sorry, so starting 2110.480-03-00, that's at the bottom of page 22.
We have Jackson textbooks?
Yes. So I see, maybe I'm just missing.
I'm just gonna repeat that louder.
Go ahead.
2110.480-03 dash 000? No,
002.
002.
0002.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, so I don't see one for Highview. I'm just curious what STEAM textbooks, what would fall under that.
The textbooks were kept on the same amount, same lines as they were the previous year. Again, the discussions are still in the planning stages of what needs to be ordered for next year. It's just a spot to hold the money that we know we will get so that it's in the budget, not so necessarily that is going to be allocated to all of that.
Can I also say that maybe because they have teaching regular school?
So that's what I was gonna say, they've
$20,000.
combined it, or Highview, you see they've combined it, they just split it out into
Where it
STEAM. If you go to the top of page 23,
Okay.
Jackson has STEAM and ENLIB World Languages, which aligns to previous director titles and director budget.
Yeah,
for different
that's what it
townships,
is.
which is what Trustee Merritt spoke to. Highview just combined it all into textbook. So I think we have some legacy accounting for
Yeah,
our organizational structure from 5 years ago, and
there used to be, I'm going to replace my math textbook this year. There's my textbook budget. I'm going to replace my reading books this year. I'm going to replace, and they go subject by subject, and it goes round and round over about a 4 or 5 year cycle, and that was a way of doing it.
okay, it's Mr. Member on page 22, scrolling down still, 23.
22, okay. No, I was on the 2250. I'm on
Oh,
page
you're right.
23.
Page 23.
So the 2250s are the special education, and that goes for the next several pages, and that again, is for all of our special ed department employees. You will see, as I said, the 2250, 150, there's an increase there because we had classes. That's on page 23. On page 24, the 2250, 154.03, that's where we had to add additional teacher assistants to support those classrooms. We did not replace a retired retiree that was an LPN, so we saved under the 2250, 164.06 codes. We added an additional occupational therapist, 2250, 166. And then they have everything for their, again, supplies, contractual. You'll see that BOCES expenditures increased with the rate. And BOCES coaster use increased anywhere from 5 to 7.5%, depending on what the coaster was. And the tuition for out-of-district placement also increased under special ed.
When we get our reimbursement for BOCES, does that get deducted here in this number, or does that come elsewhere in the revenue appropriation?
Revenue.
Okay.
So I think what's important to say about programs with students with disabilities is they're all IEP driven. So, you know, I've been on the board a long time. I always have to keep wrapping my head around that the budget is a plan, but that any amount of time in any given year, there could be more students out of district place, more students returning to the district place. So then it would be a cost or a savings that we can't really predict, right? it's all like IEP driven and dependent on the student needs. Is that accurate, Ms.
Yes.
River?
So the 228490 codes, that's for occupational education, those high school students that go to BOCES, to learn a trade. Half of the school day, that is increasing. We've seen more students signing up and going to BOCES on top of a, increase that BOCES is, proposing. And we always budget 2330s for summer school to help offset what can't be paid through federal funds. The 2610 codes are all of the library codes for all of the school buildings. The 2620 codes is our educational TV. 2630 is technology. All of that is on page 27 and 28. 2805s are for attendance. That's the attendance officer in the high school. On page 29, the 2810s are for guidance. 2815s are for health services. That is where our actual nurses per high school are budgeted for. Under page 30, the 2820 codes are for psychologists, and the 2825 codes are for social workers. You'll see there is a decrease in the psychologist salaries because a psychologist left and we turned that into a social worker position. So you'll see a decrease there and an increase under social work. On page 31, the 2830 codes are for people personnel services, and the 2850 codes, all 2850 codes, whether they're 2850 or 2855, are for coaches, extracurricular activities. It's the athletic department.
We added another speech and language therapist this year. Looking at 2830.1.
Yes, that's a district-wide person.
Just bring a real quick what this works. Third line,
Page
page 32.
32, yes.
Two questions there. For the non-instructional salaries, we went from 75 to 198.
Yes, because we are going to hire an athletic trainer.
Okay. And then in terms of the next one down, the overtime salaries, I'm thinking that's what OT's for. Is that where the stipend might be?
Nope, the overtime is for the security that we have at every game that has increased.
Yeah, why not? So we're gonna be having a lot more games next year?
They have had a more security at the games this year than they have in the past, so I adjusted this accordingly to support that.
Is there a particular sport or just overall for all the sports?
I believe it's mainly football and basketball.
Safe routes.
And then you'll see the 2855 40208 code is 0. That's because instead of contracting out for an athletic trainer through a company, which we're unable to fulfill, we're going to hire the trainer. So I took the money away from the contractual code and used that for the salary for an athletic trainer.
Wait, is that 2855 160-08?
Yes. And on page 33 is our transportation. Break it out between district transportation and contractual transportation. We own our own transportation building. We have expenses that go there, and because we buy the fuel for the buses, that's part of the contract, because we could buy fuel with no tax, no state tax. So that all goes through us. That is going to be under the 5540 codes, that's just contracted
Raymond, the diesel fuel, why is that zero? Or did we get rid of the diesel fuel? vehicle?
Yes, yep, everything is under gasoline. Okay. The 5540 codes are for our contracted transportation. And you, per the contract, you cannot increase from 1 year to another greater than the CPI that is set in May. That is not released till June, so we have to come up with an estimate of what that's going to be, and we base this on, I believe, 4%. The next page on page 34 and part of page 35 are all of our employee benefits. Our ERS, our TRS, Social Security, workers' comp, life insurance, unemployment insurance, health insurance, Medicare, reimbursement to our retirees, and welfare fund are all budgeted here.
Ms. Raymond, I don't remember, did we already get the percentages for yours? So that's the.
You'll see that under on page 34, the 90-10-80101, I left that number the same. That's because we came within that number, about a savings, so I kept it that way, knowing that if we needed to go to our reserve, which is what it's there for.
Can you ask a clarifying question about the very top on page 34, contract transportation for field trips? What does that mean?
Every school has an allotment for field trips for busing.
Right, but then on, that's all on page 33, very top of page 34, it's 5540.47.
Right, that's an additional amount, like, for example, our basketball team, I've had to take them to Binghamton twice.
Right,
That is for those unexpected costs or if something goes wrong.
okay, gotcha. But that's, I'm sorry, that's not under athletic trips or travel, that's.
No, I keep that under a separate code because I don't know what I'm going to be using it for.
That makes sense, thank you.
That account can be used for any school or.
Yes.
Okay.
Or for anything. So if Frank needs to add an additional run, I'm gonna pull it from there. If Frank needs to add another trip to get an out-of-district student to a private school and it hasn't been budgeted, if it's something brand new, I'm pulling it from there.
So transportation miscellaneous.
Correct, correct. So we talked about ERS, TRS is going up 10%, and that's all based on salaries. And health insurance, so we have three, page 35, we have 3 health insurance plans. We have now negotiated and, for lack of a better word, whittled it down to just one company, one main company. And those people who chose to stay that are grandfathered into those other 2 companies, when they retire or they go on to Medicare, we will eliminate those companies and we'll just stay with Swiss Chip, which is the Southern Westchester self-employed, self-insured of the Westchester school districts that belong to it. And we have been told that that is going to go up 8.97%. So why did I decrease that number? Because if you remember last year, they told us it was going to go up double digits and it didn't. So there was a savings this year. So I based it off of what my actual numbers are this year that I'm going to pay and did that 8.97% increase. And I increased health, you'll see there's a negative number there. That is the employees, that what comes out of the employee's salary, their portion of the health insurance. I don't net that health insurance number, I keep them separate so you can see. Okay. Then if you look on the last page, page 36, you're going to see a large increase under code 9760-700-01. That is for our debt service on the energy performance contract. And I am going to very soon take a bond anticipation note for phase 2. take a bond anticipation note when a project that is going to be supported by a bond extends more than 1 year. Ban the amount that you need and just take interest on that. And then in the next year, when you continue the next part of the project, which will be the other 2 roofs, Jackson and Highview's roof, then you'll turn that ban into a bond and actually take the money and make the first payment in the 26-27 school year and having to make the payment next year. You don't want to take a loan and have to be making payments on it if you're not getting any product for it. So I've budgeted in there an interest payment. Right now,
What he's asking, what?
yeah, I'm just trying to, yeah. You know what, I'm not gonna say, because I might not be reading it correctly.
Interesting.
But we did get the energy performance contract at 4.68. I know it was 4 point something we got it at. We thought we did very well with that. We were concerned, remember?
Yeah.
And then there's interfund transfer to the federal funds. Remember, the federal funds run on a different year than the school district. So there are times that the general fund has to loan the federal fund money until their money comes in and they can pay it back. And that is what this 425,000 is budgeted for. And then this year we put $1 million. We tried to get the capital interfund transfer back up to $1 million. And we are in discussion right now what we would use that million for. If we would pick a project like we have in the past or different projects for that, or if we would take that money and just put it right into the capital reserve for a larger project. So we're proposing a budget of $84,158,498, which if you look at the what is that? Oh, no, I wanted to see.
It's not touchscreen.
Oh, it's not touchscreen. I wondered what was the budget increase. I didn't write that down. Budget right there, budget to budget increase is a 3.84% increase. And then in order to obviously balance the appropriations, we'd have to do the revenue side. And that mainly is comprised of or composed of real property taxes. That's the largest of all. And that would be a proposed 4.06% increase in taxes.
Are there any questions?
I'm on page 11, yeah.
Page
11? Page 11.
Yes. It looks something with the ECP salary. I was trying to listen to the discussion.
Page 12, page 12.
Is it? Is that good?
Page 12 are administrative salaries.
All right, because ECP, oh, you know what, I'm sorry, it was page 17, that's right. Yeah.
210.
Christine, I don't want to do that. So the budget we have was 165, and then it almost doubles to 324.
Correct.
Is that
That is
because we're giving an
because,
extra classroom?
no, that's not extra classrooms, that's extra staff. We have hired one-on-one teacher aides for many students, and they've hired more teacher assistants.
Okay.
If you remember that the funding for Head Start, UPK, is limited funds, and if they're gonna continue to hire and can't support it in that, it has to come to the general.
Okay, so, all right, so if those don't come through as anticipated.
No, they come through, but so if you have, let's just say you have $100,000 that you're getting for Head Start, and you've already done you budgeted $100,000 worth of salaries in Head Start, but now you need to hire more, it's gotta come to the general.
So the short version is our ECP program is not fully funded by outside.
Correct,
agencies.
That's what I was gonna-
correct, it's not fully funded by those grants that we get.
Gotcha.
Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Simon? Oh,
Go ahead, Mr. Simon.
you're muted, okay.
Okay. First of all, I think you've done an excellent job on the budget. I think the district has a lot to be proud of. I spoke and I spoke to a few board members and I was saying that, you know, we should show off all the work that was done, the amount of improvement we have done on the building. And the concern was, well, if we go out and show that all this improvements were done, then you might get a backlash from people saying, well, then why do we need a 4.1 increase? And I said, we should sell it. And the way we could sell it, we said, listen, years ago, you told us you did not want consolidation, and then we should take smaller bonds and then show that we are responsible in how we're spending that money. And that's what we did. We floated a bond for out the $10 million range. And then we went back and we applied for the energy funding, which we got what, another $110,000 or $20,000. So we have a story to tell. We listened to what you said. Not only did we keep it to the bond to about 10,000, we went out knowing that we needed more to do and got another $110,000. So we listened to what you said and wind up doing $20 million worth of improvements in the district without increasing your taxes on just about 90% of it. And look what we have accomplished. And you show this is what we accomplished. You look at our scores, they're going up. You look at the ESL, when in our district we have like 48% people with Hispanics, and you look at ESL scores and you compare it to other districts that have a high percentage of Hispanic, we're on the top. So we outperform Elmsford, outperform Yonkers, outperform White Plains and ESL. Plus our overall scores went up. So we are educating everyone. People have a foreign language, ESL students, they're being educated. Students who are not ESL, look at their scores. They're being educated. So we have a good story to tell. We are doing what you told us to do, and we're taking small bonds. We're doing everything, and look, and we should be proud and showcase and go to the public. And then we say we did everything possible to keep that number to 4.1, knowing fairly well that inflation last year went over 7%. But we did everything to keep it lower because we recognize that it has a financial impact. But we also want to continue to invest in the future because you see the results. So when we invest your money, look at the results we're getting. So I don't think we should hide our candle under a bush and say, oh, don't invite people to come and see the beautiful buildings that we should be showcasing. And when it's just a matter of marketing and showing people what we have done, showing people that we're listening to you and we're doing the things you ask us to do. So I don't feel any embarrassment. I feel proud to have people come in and walk through the schools and see all the work we have done. We have a good story to tell, so we should tell it.
I think thank you so much, Mr. Simon, for saying all of that. And to that point, I'm going to say that for those of you that are attending here tonight in person, if you've not had a chance to check out the newly renovated Bailey Auditorium, that we can stop by there on the way out. show it to you. So, thank you for that, Mr. Simon.
Mr. Simon, the only thing I have to say about that is that, yes, you're showcasing. Can we do less with what we have in terms of getting back to the taxpayers? What do you think about that? Because that's the big question that will surround us.
I so what you mean, given, we are, the mere fact that our costs in general went up 7%. And we're saying, no, we can't. So we're giving back 3%. Because we said we can't we can't go with a 7% increase. Well, first of all, we'd be above the cap, but the whole philosophy is no, but the philosophy is because we have that cap, because we recognize the economic burden. So it's a combination of a legislative cap plus awareness of listening to the public and investing the way they told us we should invest the money.
Before, two other people have questions, but
And on the screen.
just, but just to refresh everybody, the tax cap was mentioned. Yes, inflation has been higher in the last few years, especially this year. And we have been capped, but to the point of the cap, Ms. Raymond, if you could just remind us
6.78.
that we could have gone up to
7.68.
7.68 and still remained under the tax levy cap for this proposed budget year.
We've been saving our cap from year after year. We don't go all the way up to the tax cap. So we've gotten several percentage points for several years of doing that. So we could go as high as 7.68 and still be under the cap, but we don't think that the community can handle it.
A selling point.
Sam Ives had a question, then Deb Geraldine will be after Sam Ives.
Thank you, I'm fine.
You're fine? Okay, Deb Geraldine?
Hi, yes, good evening, everybody. I'm sorry I had to log in late. I am at work, but I did want to log on to catch the part for the athletic trainer, and I'm glad that I did see that that was in the budget. I just have a comment about that. I believe the salary was posted at in the budget as $50,000. I don't know, can we scroll back to see if that's accurate?
No, it was posted, it was budgeted at 75,000.
Oh, 75,000. Okay. All right. That's great. Because I just went on OLAS and I wanted to make sure that it was a competitive salary so we could actually get somebody to fill the spot.
Right.
All right. Perfect.
What you were looking at, ma'am, was when we were contracting it out as a part-time service, we budgeted 40,000 for it, but to hire an employee that we want full-time, we budgeted 75.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
I have a follow-up. It's Tracy again. I just had to switch to mobile, but I have a follow-up to Ms. Jardine. So that 75 is the salary that we're budgeting for, but the benefits for that salary are in another line, right, Ms. Raymond?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, understood. Thank you.
Okay.
So as another follow-up to that, that budget line item is jumping from 75,000 to 198,608. So if the trainer is 75,000, where is the other 123?
There are increases in the GTN contract for salaries, and there are other proposed coaches in the budget.
Are we getting more sport?
Possibly, there's been a proposal for I don't know if it's more sports as much as like an assistant, like flag football assistant coach, that kind of thing, more help within some of the sports.
Certain sports have more children participating, perhaps they might need multiple modified or JV teams. I assume
Correct,
this is a
correct,
possibility.
You know, and I just want to hop back to the overtime security, because the police officers are at the games too, right? That's, I'm just trying to figure it out, that's all. I mean, that's a big jump to go from 20,000 to 50 for 2 sports. So I'm just trying to understand the logic, because the police officers are at the game as well. I think they're another form of security, right?
True. I would have to ask Mr. Head and Mr. McCoy why they hire the number that they do. I'm not involved with that.
So is there a way we could pull down things were assigned this year? Because anecdotally as a parent, I can say that I observed at soccer games, for example, double the security that we had last year. So I don't know if that's just one report anecdotally, but it's not facts. So it'd be interesting to. I see Gabriella at the hand. Any questions, concerns, comments? If not, anyone who views this meeting and has a question that they'd like to ask at a later time can email budget@greenburghcsd.org. That is reviewed daily by Ms. Raymond, and she will answer the emails. Once again, the next Finance Committee meeting is April 1st at 7 p.m. Location to be determined. It will be posted on the district website. All I can say is it will not be at Woodlandsville High School. And I just want to go on to one other topic, and that's we discussed earlier how different government activities may impact the budget. On a related note, I've been getting information from various organizations, so as the board as a whole, and there are some considerations that we could share with the community at large. I didn't know, I've spoken to President Mayers. I wanted to bring it up at a CPC meeting, convenient that we're sharing a meeting here, but there are different voter voice, take action, things we could share. I don't know if we want to consider sharing it out to our community partners, if we want to recommend to the full board that we post a link on our board webpage. Just very briefly, Westchester Public School Board Association has advocacy voter voice letter writing campaigns. One of them has to do with is an auto send, depending on your address, to our federal legislators, and that's to reject the higher eligibility standards for community for our free school lunches. There are other letters to our New York State legislators regarding the revision of the regional cost index, which we spoke about earlier, that they seem to be in favor of, to support additional funding for student mental health as an expense-based aid instead of, I think, some formula that they use now. That's something that doesn't seem to be high on their radar, so letters could influence that. And request to delay the implementation of the electrical vehicle mandate until different operational issues and funding issues are resolved. NYSBA, the New York State School Board Association, has also created letter writing campaigns on both the federal and the state level. Very similar issues. A lot of them are a little more detailed at the federal level. I'll just name a few of them. One of them is to reject the proposed Medicaid reductions for medically necessary or IEP mandated services to students with disabilities. Of course, Medicaid reductions could then further erode qualifications for the free school lunch program. Letter to support Title I and IDEA funding, which apparently, and I think Trustee Warner has this scheduled a little bit later, that funding right now is not under explicit threat. What's more immediately under threat is Title II. However, we need to beware, and I think letters in support of that funding could go out. And to support some of the other things we mentioned earlier, career and technical education funding, and to restore the full state and local tax deduction, especially important here in New York. NYSBA also has other voter voice campaigns for our New York State legislators, so I just wanted to put it to the group. Do we share this information with our partners? Do we recommend to the board that it should be posted on our webpage? Anyone up for discussion?
Yes, we don't mind. If I can speak in my role as PTA Council President, we were invited, PTA hosted an advocacy day last week. We had a number of elected representatives, including Senator Shelley Mayer, who's the chair of the Education Committee. We had an open forum. She was very valuable information. We had an update on a lot of what's going on in New York State and what they know federally. One of the things that I heard for the first time that was very impactful is Senator Mayer saying, phone calls are great. We've been flooded with them, but when you send an email, I can print it and walk into committee with a handful of emails that say my constituents want this.
Yep.
So please, please, please email, do these, even if they're form letters, get people to write in, send me something I can print and take with me that is your voice, not mine, and put on a table and say this is what you need. So I wholeheartedly support this. PTA, if you go to our council Facebook page, has also been sharing our resources for these letter writing campaigns and our advocacy, which is in line with all of these things as well. And I know from being in the room in these situations that our local legislators, even the ones who do represent us in Washington, listen to the schools. They know our schools, they know them very well, and they do want to hear from us. So please do share this.
Good.
Yes.
I agree.
I'd like to point out that not everybody goes visiting people's Facebook pages or websites.
Correct.
So if you really want to get a campaign going, you have to write to people and say, click here to write your letter. Yes. And go straight to them. Now, you might need to talk to legal as to whether you as the board of ed can do that, but the PTA might not have such a restriction on them.
We don't. We at council level don't have a mailing list. Our units do. So that is something that we collaborate with our building level units. But again, our PTAs only reach out to people who opt in as members. So it's important in this time that everybody please opt in as members, make sure everybody else does too, because we are your advocacy arm. We're not bound to the same rules that the school board is. But we can also amplify anything the school board can send. We do have that reach at the building levels for the PTAs too.
And I'd like to point out the town has a GB list that the PTA could use if they want to send out stuff.
Sometimes.
Huh?
And sometimes we can.
Mr. Simon?
But one of the reasons why I was late, I was listening to the news, and it said that Trump will issue an executive order tomorrow close shutting down the Department of Education. So that just came out this evening. So that's something else that we have to consider.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think we're going to discuss it in a little more detail later, but yes, it's every day things are changing. So we're trying to-
My agenda is so early.
Right. So is there a consensus of this group, whether we should bring it up to President Mayer as well as the full board, whatever way is appropriate to post something online and possibly do a blast? I think, is there a motion?
Yes.
Documentation from the committee.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
Yes, I second it.
All in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? Tensions, okay, will be presented to the board. Thank you all. At this point, is there any other finance specific concerns before the meeting gets turned over to David to talk about community engagement and communication and related topics? Seeing none, okay, Warren.
Okay, bring up the agenda for the CEC. And if this gets too long and tedious, then tell me and we'll table it, okay, but. Because it's 8:30. Very close to it.
Pulling that up, if there's anyone here or online that is, you don't have to be a member of the finance committee, but if you want me to email anything, either make sure you put your email address in the finance sheet or email cvalin, CVALIN @greenburghcsd.org, and I'll add you to the mailing list. As Dr. Ellen knows, it might not go out till the morning of the meeting. I apologize for that. But I will include you on the list. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Eddie Jackson Extra Mile Award. every year. Betty Jackson was a secretary at Lee F. Jackson, before it was called Lee F. Jackson. And she retired, and she was also a union leader, but she retired and she kept at it, volunteering in the schools, taking care of kids who needed a little extra TLC for about 20 years. And she used to come to the board meetings, and if she would either, she had her finger on the pulse, and if she had something to complain about, you listened. And if what she complained about was trivial, like, a misplaced comma in a memo, you knew everything was okay. And so we named our Extra Mile Award for people who go above and beyond the call of duty, beyond the job description, if they're a teacher or a staff member, and if they volunteer in the career. If they're not career educators, but they volunteer in the school. So we take nominations from the community. So think of somebody that you would like, or you think goes above and beyond the call of duty, and go to the website about Board of Education, Betty Jackson Award, and it's in Spanish as well as English, and you can nominate someone. Just write up a little paragraph on what you think they did. The deadline is 5/21, May 21st. Get it in by then, and then what will happen is a small committee of people will judge which people to give an award to. And the other thing that we have to do is we need to make sure that there's a committee to judge that, to judge the nominations. And so Tracy Mears is the board member, the superintendent is the second person, and then get 3 more people and we're done. So far, usually you canvass the list of past winners. Damaris Lugo, our district registrar, has said yes. So we're down to we need 2. That's Betty Jackson Extra Mile Award.
If I could just
Yeah,
clarify, we canvass the list of past winners, but they're not required to be past members, so
They're not required. Anyone can do it.
Here could volunteer.
Yes, but understand that if you do that and you nominated somebody, then you've got a problem.
You cannot be on the committee and nominate someone.
Right. Okay. Okay, that's that.
I don't see anyone raising their hand yet. Everyone's thinking. Okay. I know.
Okay, so we're working on a welcome event, a superintendent's dessert. It'll be in June. We're trying to gather gather up a list of people to invite, and we'll post it and bring people in. So well, I'll ask the administration. Yes.
So I see you have June 10th here, and June 10th is currently listed as the GCFD Night of Summer Fun event.
Right, so at the end of that.
So is that being held at Jackson? Because that's where you list this event being held.
That's where I listed the event being held because the CEC was there. Let's see, where is the evening of?
I can't speak for this year. All I know is last year it wasn't the school.
Okay, so check location.
Area.
I mean, it's pretty big.
Woodland. Summer. Fun. Okay. Co-locate. Good idea. Okay. And there's a long description of how a superintendent dessert normally goes, and it's a lot of Q&A. So fine and food. So,
Question. What are we doing for the outgoing superintendent? Right, but this isn't a welcome event. This is a community event, correct?
okay.
Yeah, we should change it. Calling it a welcome, a little weird. I think we changed it.
It's not related to welcoming any new staff.
Yeah.
It's a community greetings event, right? It's a community event.
I can, with the pencil slash, get rid of welcome event. Okay.
To your question, no, TBD.
Come to the meeting tomorrow night. Okay. All right. Any other questions on that? Moving on to the next page. The U.S. Department of Education layoffs. The U.S. Department of Education laid off 1,300 workers, closed centers in New York, Chicago, and Dallas, and fired most staff from Civil Rights Department and the General Counsel. So that's, yeah. And 21 state attorney generals have filed suit to stop the layoffs. Okay. And now you told me that Walter has told me that the president is trying to unilaterally close the department, which is illegal. But
He doesn't care.
he doesn't care. Okay. So that's where that is, and the fight goes on. And the reason that this one reason that this is important is the next item: diversity, equity, and inclusion. U.S. Department of Education issued a dear colleague letter condemning DEI. We have a DEI policy and a DEI committee and all those things. However, the Attorney General's guidance memo from March 5th from Illinois, Massachusetts, and New York defends DEI programs and says, don't listen to that. It's a misinterpretation of the Constitution. You can get around it. So the fight goes on. On the one hand, they're laying off all their lawyers. Okay, so if the Department of Education goes on the attack, and if by the attack I mean jeopardizes our funding, our federal funding, then the question is what kind of targets they're going to pick. And so far, it's mostly large colleges that are high-profile targets that they can do with very few lawyers. So I'm thinking that we're pretty far down the list, but I just wanted people to be aware of this and keep it posted.
I do want to say, even though we're down the list, a lot of schools are changing the titles for their DEI coordinators or staff, just in case it does come down.
So it's harder to find.
So that it's harder to find and cut the funding off.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if they shut down the entire department, which Trump said he's going to do tomorrow, then that would affect. It might be held up from the court, but there'll be a period of time when we won't know what's going to happen, how that'll affect any federal funding. So all I'm saying that regardless of what happened with the courts, there will be a period of time where we don't know anything because we don't know what's the status, whether they get an injunction or how long the injunction would last. But that's the point I was making, that we will go into a period of uncertainty, of flux.
Yes.
Mr. Simon, I want to add on to your point. I agree with you, and I'd like to argue that we're already in a period of uncertainty and flux. Certainly not thinking. We are at a bit of a crisis moment, but it is my understanding that the Department of Ed is in a big way sort of an umbrella. And under that umbrella, the actual things that are managed, like student loans in one bucket, Title IX in another bucket, Title I in another bucket, those belong to other parts of the government as well. So the crisis moment, the burning bridge may not be right now. I think we need to save our panic for when we actually know when things are coming. Right now, things are just so in the air. But the Department of Education going away is a sort of like the umbrella closing, but the actual people who sign the checks, I mean, it's Congress in a lot of ways, or the Treasury Department, or other things that are under threat, don't get me wrong. But if the Department of Ed closes tomorrow, our budget is okay, our bills are paid, we are fine. Things like DEI, one thing we're working on in the PTA is how to continue doing the work without getting anybody in trouble. So while we don't want to change the language, we don't want to give in to pressure, we also want to make sure that the high level work we're doing continues without calling negative attention to the people that we actually are trying to support and advocate for and protect. I do think that's a different kind of, it's all one conversation, right? But I think for me, it's ongoing anxiety and not necessarily a cliff that we're on. I think it's more building the community, building our networks, trusting one another, that we're all coming at this with positive intentions and supporting our students in a big way. So I do agree with you, but I want to take a little bit of the panic out of the Department of Ed going away tomorrow. It won't change anything for us tomorrow. Just
Understood. And my intention was not to panic, but to be aware
yes.
and make sure we are putting appropriate strategies in place to continue. So being prepared is not the same as panicking.
Okay. Do we know what the impacts might be?
Well, and as I understood it before, they were wiping out the people who, look for civil rights violations, okay? And, so there's like, you have an office in New York because you have to go out to the school because somebody claims I can't fit my wheelchair through the doorway, or the gate, or whatever, and they go out and they measure and they say, okay, and then they haggle and get it fixed, by applying legal pressure and move on to the next case, okay? So if the thing that I know that they already did was to lay off all people in those satellite facilities so that they can't do it. They've got a big backlog to begin with, and now complaints will go in and they won't come out. So, I'm not sure what happens if you completely shut down the whole thing, because they said, we kept the parts that will keep the checks coming, relatively intact.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if you take away the whole thing, somebody else is gonna do it.
How much of a budget depends on the
And that last meeting, I don't have it in my brain right now. I think I read
It's not
it.
It's just curious, is it a large portion, is it a minor portion?
Overall, it's a smaller. portion.
What did we say? Okay. Yes.
Just a quick comment / question. From my understanding, curriculum is not directly impacted per se, because it's curriculum is determined at the states, right? Correct?
Correct. It is determined at the
Okay,
states.
but,
However, with the colleague member, it doesn't sound like that's understood.
right. No, that was the question, right? Like, as far as curriculum, yes, the layoffs happened in Central New York, but as far as that translating into changes into curriculum, I don't see the state. Well, I don't know. I shouldn't see this. A lot of this, we shouldn't be seeing, and is there any anticipation of impacted curriculum? I guess that's the question. No. From the
$1,000 million question.
Yeah.
Again,
I cannot reassure you
Not at the moment.
that Trump will not find a way to dictate the curriculum to everyone, whether anyone listens or not. Okay. So we'll go over the construction stuff. I have a bunch of pictures. I have a bunch of pictures of us, succeeding at basketball and our students making beautiful art and us fixing the roofs and that sort of thing. So why don't we look at all of that as one big swap, and you're gonna start clicking through at relatively high speed, and let me know when you want to. Yeah, anybody let me know if you wanted to pause. So there was an IB Visual Arts exhibition. And here are some of our student art. This is high school level art. The Hispanic girl and her mother came from Mexico and went through a number of trials and tribulations. And here's her inner child. A sample of the art you can make with junk material. And there's a a social message here, and apparently that's the annual salary of a garment worker posted on there. And multicultural, self-portrait. Hello, kitties. Lies, the snakes are on people, The Last Dance. Right. The ballerina. This is a strange, the perils of love. There's a mother and a baby killer whale, and the mother didn't eat and just pushed her dead baby to the surface, and until she starved to death. I see a little heart in the swans. There's a weeping willow. I have so much love for you that it doesn't fit. Keep going. A lot of horror themes. All right, Birth of a Demon. That's a Japanese. Darth Lisa. Okay. Yes, it's terrible. Back-to-back globes. Okay, that's the basketball team has done that. Section champions for 2 times in a row. I've got some. Oh, okay. That is a clip that it should be a movie.
I can play it a little bit.
Yeah.
Mr. Warner is boarded and not.
Okay. I understand. Okay, so a person becomes, and knows that they're changing, and is aware of that, and makes it into art.
Can we move on to the facilities stuff?
Yeah, if we can find it. There's
It's a steam.
steam night,
You want to skip ahead to facility.
finding fossils, making nests, making electronics, robotics. Copy filter art, you blow up a balloon and it makes a car go. That's a computer science thing. The little robots following your map that you draw on a piece of paper. There's some roof work at Woodlands High School. So it's going on at night, so people doesn't get in the way of the students. That's a science wing, I think. And there's our this is a mixture of different games. There's our
David,
New Yorktown, yeah.
oh, I'm sorry. I know you're going quickly. I don't want to delay anything, and I know I could ask at the finance committee, but since this is community engagement, I am wondering, is there any way to give some sort of information to the parents and student community about the work being done at Woodlands Middle High School? Because a lot of people don't necessarily know what's being done, and they're wondering, I asked before if it'll be cleaned up, at least the field for graduation, but also how long all of the staff and extra folks will be there.
They'll be there till it's finished. And the roof should be a couple of months, and
David, the question is there gonna be any communication to the students, to the parents of the kids that go to the school? That's what I'm saying.
you want us to tell all the kids? Or you want us to tell the parents?
We have a facilities update tab on the website that people can go to look and see what's going on.
Okay,
Yeah, that's not sufficient. If your child goes to the school, you're not necessarily gonna check the website, you're not necessarily attending a facilities committee. You have kids who go to the school, you have people that come to the school, drop their kids off, and they're wondering, what are these large things? What are these people doing late at night if you're picking your kid up from the practice of the play? I'm asking about communication.
You want to push communication as opposed to having it be there for people to find.
Right, that's what she's saying.
So you want a flyer, or you want to put it in the newsletter, or what, do you want to create a new venue to do it? Or do you want to use the old venue?
May I ask a follow-up?
Yeah.
President Maris, is this if I can break down is the immediate concern the transportation and parking restrictions that might be in place with all the facilities work and the areas they've blocked off with heavy trucks, and we need to communicate that for the play and know the timeline for the graduation? Is that the immediate concern, apart from general communication? I'm just trying to break it down.
Listen, if y'all don't, and I'm like moving around, I'm so sorry. I had to leave the meeting and log online. If people can't understand what I'm asking, I'm sorry about that. But you know, sure, whatever can get some information communicated about the work. What do you think that it should be done? That's the question.
I have a suggestion,
Okay.
and it's parallel to what I said before in terms of selling it. You get a big poster, and you put it on in front of the site saying your tax dollars at work. The roof is being replaced. You know,
On the site.
Everybody sees it, and you're selling the thing that you're doing. There's tax dollars at work, and we're doing it at night not to interfere with the safety of your children. Just have a big sign with similar type wording, so when people come in, they, without going to the website or anything, they just see the sign.
Sounds great. Deborah?
Yes, I also have a suggestion. I agree with Tracy 100%. I have 2 students that go to the school. When I'm with them in the front, my son constantly, what are they doing? I said, it looks like they're repairing the roof. We don't know if it has to do with the entrance. We don't know if it's the roof itself. They just know there's a lot of construction. And for the 2 years that my daughter's been in the school, this is her 3rd year, she's never walked through the front door. Putting information in that quarterly newsletter that gets mailed to the house would be great. Also, the school puts out a weekly newsletter. The superintendent puts out a weekly newsletter. It can easily go in there. That's up to the parent. If they're going to read it, great. If they're not, well, they can remain, not knowing what's happening. But for the parents that want to know, that want to keep abreast of what's happening in the school, that's a great piece of information. A little timeline, what's being done, when the students can imagine they're going to walk through the front of the school.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Jardine.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Basketball, we won sections, we won, right, here's the action shots. We went to Yorktown, we won regional, and we're going to state this weekend. And Saturday, we have a game at 10 a.m. And if we win, then Sunday, we have a game at 10 a.m. And if we win, then we're the state champions of Class B. And of course, our basketball team is winning. And of course, it's also the weekend for Footloose. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there are performances of Footloose. So you can't be in 2 places at once, but beware, it's PG 13. Okay, go ahead. And more art, okay. For construction, we're putting hooking up the gas lines to Lee F. Jackson. All right, the route that the gas pipe follows is across the parking lot and at that little side entrance that you would use if you were a walker and wanted to come in from the neighborhood. And there's some more pictures of that. Okay, there it was under construction. Okay. And we put mats finally at RJ Bailey Gymnasium, which you can go look at. And they're, branded. We talked about the importance of branding. We got the right shade of green. There was the crew that we installed them ourselves. Those are the people who did it. Next. And of course, you can see RJ Bailey Falcons. So we're into the branding thing. And there's the whole STEAM night. You saw robotics earlier. Go ahead. And that's Woodlands during the day. Right, a lot of EPDM. And we have, I don't have her name.
Gisela Pollard.
Gisela. Okay. We have a wrestling champion. Okay. That's it. Okay. Let's adopt the minutes. Show us the minutes.
Very impressive.
While you're pulling up the minutes, we answered a question posed a few minutes ago. The last copy of the state aid run from the executive proposal, the district, she proposed that the district would receive 6.9 million, which is an increase of about 3.5%. Back of the envelope calculations for our federal grants, it's 2 million plus or minus. Back of the envelope, I'm sure Ms. Raymond will see this or hear about this number and correct me, but it's a very rough calculation.
Mr. Warner, I don't see the minutes in the documents.
I have the minutes in the hard copy packet.
So for those in the room, I will.
So for those in the room,
That we,
so look at the back of the packet.
the minutes, what's presented.
That was really slow.
CV,
I second.
Gabby, minutes. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Done with that, back to the agenda. See. We talked, recent events, we talked about the IB art show, you saw it, we saw STEAM night, we saw the boys varsity basketball, all the details are on the chart. There's a couple of pages worth of integration of all of our upcoming events and our sports events, which are for some reason on separate calendars. So you want to coordinate, just look at this. Tomorrow night, there's a special board meeting. Superintendent final candidate, Dr. Lorenda Chisholm. It's here at RJ Bailey at 7 p.m. Let's see, the Woodland Spring Musical I already talked about. The boys varsity basketball championships and the finals I talked about. And the rest is we're starting baseball season and flag football and tennis is going. So that's the next couple of pages. And did Samantha Angeletta, are you on the line? I don't think she made it. Samantha had another meeting to get to and was going to try to come to us. But live continues. Yes, the kickoff is already happening. And so in coming months, there will be a journal reading night and then a number of presentations from students. If you're interested, I'll let you know when there's a schedule posted for that. Other concerns, anybody?
The information that was disseminated by Walter, would that be would it be incorporated somewhere along the line? That is sending these messages out to parents, having parents be aware, using the media that we have right now, incorporating some of the things that we intend to do and is being done, the roofing and all that sort of stuff. So are you going to use that platform?
Is it the recommendation of this committee that we go forth with a facilities information push?
Yeah, I'm with it.
With it, using using existing media, great.
Yeah, we could do it.
All right, I move that. Anybody second? Yes? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Media push facilities. Recommendation. Okay. Yeah,
In the past, before COVID, I was in one of these community engagement meetings and the then head of the Woodlands, well, I don't even know what he was anymore. He was some science oriented teacher in some kind of leading position, I think, at Woodlands. And I made, what?
Tokarski?
No, I forgot his name.
Go ahead.
Doesn't matter. I pointed out to him that, especially on Woodlands, we have a property that is unique in Westchester County for a school. And in the current climate, and I'm talking climate in not just political terms, but also in real terms, the climate, the weather. There are a lot of changes going on, and this property offers the school and the students an opportunity to be part of a monitoring group. Actually go out there and monitor certain things of the property, certain quadrants or something like that. I made that suggestion, it went nowhere. I brought it up to the superintendent at some point, went nowhere. And I'm an ecologist, I've done this I'm retired now. I offer my services free of charge to help the students with that or the teachers with that, but it would be after school program. I mean, I don't know where that would be, but I mean, that's kind of thing. I just thought to bring it to the board's attention that this offer is out there. And I think it would be very, very valuable, especially with an emphasis on STEAM education. And that the students could say, I'm part of this monitoring team that 10 years ago said this was a tree here and now it's dead, or something like that. Or there was nothing here, now there's a weed growing here, whatever.
So is there a name to the organization?
The organization, it's no organization, it is my personal offer to the school district to do something with the teaching staff or the students. This is after school club, whatever it is, to develop some kind of a monitoring program for the woods and the grounds and come up with long-term, I mean, this climate change doesn't change everything overnight. It's something that's decades in the making. Make it beginning at some point, and then maybe each year you go at certain points of the year. In the school year, you go out there and monitor it. And you document this, and then next generation of students can go back to the records of the previous students. Look at it.
The current science lead teacher, Ms. Belfiore, I don't know if she's the only teacher, but she teaches the IB ESS class, environmental ESS, and to look it up. And what to do with that, and I know the kids have to do a project each year, and my son 1 year, look at analyze water before and after rain events. Flows in really nicely, so maybe if they can make a connection, maybe there could be some work done on where you can help mentor or help kids develop projects for that ESS.
I just think
At a minimum.
I mean, that gives them that thought and the unique property that they see in school that has. And very, very unique property that nobody has these woodlands that we have.
Agreed. The reason I said Tokarski is because he's the person who gave me advice on figuring out how deep the pond was, and they had this whole.
I have the feeling it has to do with the teachers have to get involved in after school work, and do they get paid for that? I mean, that's probably one of the hindrances.
But a new club, the teacher doesn't get paid the first year, but they're after the people decide. So you can work a deal. Okay. The Ecology Club. You would be invited. Yeah, go ahead.
If I understand the gentleman, what he's offering, I think he's offering to form an environmental club. If that's correct, environmental club, and what needs to be done to get that off the ground, because as he stated, he's willing to participate in it. And if that's something we think is good, which personally I think is excellent, this is just an advancement of the emphasis on STEM to start an environmental club And then once we are committed or think is a good idea, then the next step is to figure out how do you do that, the particulars. But I think the important thing for this group is to say, you know, we support the creation of environmental group. And then from that, the particulars we can't determine tonight or here. I think the important thing that we support the formation of an environmental club.
Okay.
Is that what the gentleman was saying? I don't want to put words in his mouth, but is that
Yes.
consistent with what you're offering?
Yes.
Thank you, Walter, that's right.
Okay.
Now, what to do is make an introduction because there's already a system in place for creating the plan. Okay, anyone else? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Who said that? All in favor? Aye. Time is now 9:01.
Night, everyone.